but it's my first time for first year, so I hope it's not gonna confuse you guys. But let's get started. So this is Unity. It's a really popular engine. It's been used to create many games, usually indie games, but if any of you heard of like Rust, for example, which is quite big game, but created by Gary, the guy who created Gary's mod. So it's very commonly used, and people are expecting this to know. If you're looking for a job into games, it's a must now, pretty much at this point. So this is Unity. When you start out, you might start with different layout, but I'm usually using wide layout. So just change the layout to wide, and you will have the same layout as me. So this is the scene, and as you see, it's empty. Besides, there's one object in the scene. If you select, you can see, and that's the main camera. So here is the list of the objects you have that are in the scene. So you have the main camera here, and I can hold Alt and rotate around the camera, hold Alt and right click to zoom in, or middle click to pan around. And as you can see, that's the camera preview, so that's what actually happens in the game. Also, when you press here on the game, you can see that's what the camera sees, and it's just blue at the moment. And here is your assets and any textures, models, all goes here. So first, let's create. We're gonna create a very simple game. It's picking sticks game. If anyone knows what picking sticks game is, it's basically you just walk around with a character and you pick up a stick, and it will randomly appear at a different position, and your score goes up by 1. It's a pretty good example. It's like Hello World in gaming because it teaches you collision, music, sound, how to do that, movement, keyboard input, all that. So it's a pretty good example to start with. So let's create the main character, for example. So let's go to game. We're going to go to game object, create other, and here you can create different primitives. So you can create cube, sphere, capsule, cylinder, or a plane. So we're going to create a cube. So a character will be just simple cube because I don't have any models or anything. But if you create a model in Maya, for example, you can just drag it in, it loads, and then you can pretty much use a 3D model. So here you go, we have a cube. Oh, by the way, if you press F key, it will just zoom in. It's really similar to Maya, if anyone used with the movement and all that. So W for moving. If you press E, you can rotate. And R, you can scale, and so on. So it's really similar to Maya. I don't know if you guys used Maya before, but so you can, W, E, R. So those are shortcuts, or you can click here. So we're just gonna make him a little bit taller. So that's our player. If you press on the game, you can see he's somewhere here. Since once you press on the camera is looking at the player like this. So we're just gonna lower him, move the camera up, and we're gonna rotate the camera down. So it's gonna be like this type of third-person picking sticks game. So camera is looking above at the player. And we're gonna create another primitive game object, create other plane, and that's going to be the ground. So let's just make it wider and move it down. So as you see, once you go to the game, it's really dark and you can't see anything. That's because the lighting is not set up yet, but let's move it down a little bit so you can see more. But also there's no textures or anything like this. So in here in your assets folder, so this is all your assets. You can just create another folder here, right click, create folder, and we're just gonna name it materials. And we're gonna put any textures and all this inside here. I already have few textures here. Well, actually just one grass texture. So you can just, oh, I can't drag it, okay. You used to be able to. Okay, so you just right click here, import new asset, and then go to your desktop, wherever your texture is. I just put it here. So now we're loading the texture into Unity, and now we can use this texture on any objects we want. But before you can apply the texture to this, we need a material. So just right click, create material, and grass. It's called grass mat for material. So here is the material, and as you can see, it just wants the texture. So you can just drag the texture inside here, or select and use the grass texture we got. So material, now you can apply this material to your objects. So for example, on the plane, we can just drag this on the plane, or drag here. And once we leave it, as you see, once you press on the plane, you will see what this object contains, or what kind of components it has. And there's the transform. You can change the position here, rotation, scale, what kind of mesh it's using. That's for collision. We can do that later. Rendering, and here is the material it has. So once we click on the cube, which is the player, as you can see, it just uses default material. So let's click on the game and see. So as you can see, it's still quite dark, but you can at least tell where the player is. And the texture is kind of looks really low quality. You can change the tiling here. So it's just gonna tile it. So let's do 15 by 15, and it looks a little bit better. So first, let's just rename them. So as you can see, there's cube, which is the player. So just click on it again and rename it to player. And then click on the plane and rename it to ground. You can rename it like I did with the player, or you can just go here and name it ground. So there you go. So that's what happens in the game. So far, not much. It's just this. So once we play it, so here we can play the game, and let's maximize the screen once you play it. That's all it is happening. So now let's do the lighting, so actually you can see what's going on. You can change the global lighting by going to Edit, Render Settings, and that's the ambient lighting. So let's press on the light here so you can see actually how the light is affecting the game. And then in ambient lighting you can change something wrong. I lost the texture. And before we do anything, actually let's save this so we don't lose anything. So let's main scene. Okay. So we're gonna go to Edit, Render Settings, and inside Ambient Light you can change how the global lighting, the scene. But we're not gonna make it light, we're actually gonna go opposite. And you'll see why in a second. So it's completely dark, you can't see anything. Now if you go to Game Object, Create Other, then you have different types of lights. So we're gonna create a point light. And as you can see, there's the light. And we can add shadows to it as well by going to let's create soft shadows, and it will give you this little warning here that you need to set forward the rendering. To fix this, you just go to main camera, and inside the main camera, change the rendering path to deferred. Okay, I'm not sure why it's not working. I'm guessing it's because for the shadows you need a Unity Pro, and that should be Pro. And it's not. Doesn't seem to work with the shadows. Change probably in here. Let me check quickly. Okay, well, it's no big deal. So here we have the light. We can change the intensity, the range. And quick, as you can see, there's this blue background. Just change it to black. So once you play the game, it seems like there's nothing there. Okay, so first let's start doing some scripting maybe for moving the character. So we can actually do something, because now nothing is happening in the game. So just create another folder in the assets folder. And we can name it scripts. Right click, create, and then you have different types of script languages you can use. There's JavaScript, C#, and BlueScript. JavaScript is quite commonly used among the people who start programming and things like this. C# script is usually used in actual games. But JavaScript is still used quite commonly in games, but not as often. C# is the one you want to learn if you want to make games professionally. And there's BlueScript, which is apparently I never used this one, but apparently it's much more simplified than the other two. And that's the script that this scripting language was actually created by the Unity guys themselves to make it easier for people who begin programming. But what we're gonna do is use C#. That's the one I would recommend using, even if you're starting, because once you get used to it, it's pretty easy. And so here you enter the name of the script. So we're just gonna name it player controller or something like this. So this script will be used to control the player. So let's turn the script on, so we can edit it. So just double click on it and it will open another program called Mono Behavior. Mono Develop. So this is used to edit the scripts. If you're familiar with Visual Studio, you can actually change this so it will use Visual Studio, but I would recommend using this. It's pretty good with Unity, at least. So as you can see, this is the default script that was generated once we create the file. So this is the name of the class, player controller. Keep in mind, once you rename the file, you have to rename here as well, or it's gonna error out. this problem is back. Ever since SecIT updated Unity with the new version, Unity seems to freeze on importing assets. So we have to, I don't know if it's gonna fix itself or we have to actually close it. Oh, did I fix it? Yeah. Yeah, we have to close this. It won't happen at your house, it's just, and university seems to happen since they updated the new version, so you have to actually...
Did you tell them?
Yeah.
You told them? Yeah.
They still didn't fix it, so I thought they did, but... Because there's already a newer version out, but university is still using the slightly older version, which has this bug apparently.
Ah. So we need to update again,
Yeah.
get rid of the bug.
It seems a lot of work to update this, since they have to go through all the computers. Okay, let's hope it's gonna work this time. Okay. What? It lost the folder. Well, let me create this really quickly again. It's gonna take a second. There you go, got the folder back.
So what do you have to do to get that folder back?
I had to re-import all the assets. It seemed to lost the... I lost the camera as well. Okay, so we're back to where we were. So let's do some scripting. So start function is when the object that this script was attached to is created, it runs. So at the moment when we try to do something in start, let's print. Print is used for debugging. Let's print started. So just pass in a string and it will show started once the game starts. But once you run it, actually it's not gonna run the script because the script is not attached to anything. So you need to attach the script to the object. So we're gonna attach to the player. Oh, let me rename him to player. So simply just drag the script onto the player. As you can see now, once you click on the player and go through his components, you see he has the script player controller. So now, once you run, you see it said started once. And now once we put the updating, So we're gonna print inside the update function now, and update runs as fast as it can. So see, it runs started once, and then update runs constantly. So here you will do your initialization, so like setting a variable to start or something like this. And here you will do different stuff if you want to, like for example input or anything else like this. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna move the player if a key is pressed. So we need to have an if statement, and we want to check input dot get key and wants the key. As you can see, the get key wants the key code, so we have the key code here dot, and then you have all the lists of the keys you can check, and there's joystick keys as well. So we want to check, for example, key A. So if key A was pressed, actually get key is if it's held, and you have get key down, so once you start pressing it runs once, and up once you let go of the key it runs once, but get key will run constantly. If you're holding the key, then this will run constantly. That's what we want. We want the player to move constantly as long as you hold the key. So we check if the key was pressed, and now we want to move the player. To do that, you have to use transform dot translate and open bracket, and it wants the vector 3, and vector 3 is x, y, z, pretty much. So you just type new vector 3, and then it wants the x, y, and z. So by how much? So basically you translate it, and you pass the vector 3, which will tell by how much you want to move this object on the x, y, or z position. So we want to move it on, well, let's pass in 0, 0, 0. So we won't move it at all for now. So it doesn't give you this error once we come back here. Okay, so first we want to check on which axis you want to actually move. So once we look through more or less like where how camera is looking, and if you watch here, you can see the red is actually X position. So once we change the X position, it's gonna move on like this, and the blue is Z. So on Z will move further away, and Y is up and down. Okay, so we're gonna go back to the script, and now we know we have to move on X to move it. So we're just gonna move it by, for example, 1. So once you're holding the key, we're gonna add 1 to the X position of this object. And how do we know we're gonna move this object? Because this script is attached to the player. That's why when we translate, we're gonna move the player. We're not gonna move anything else. So if you attach the script to anything else will move if you press A key. So let's go back and play the game. Don't worry about this error, it's the material. Okay, so let's press A, and actually moved all the way because A should be left, not right. So we want to actually subtract on X, not add on X. And it moves quite fast. And there's already, so that one problem is has to be negative. There's also another problem. The update function runs as fast as your computer can run. So if you have 60 frames per second, it's gonna run 60 times. If your computer runs this game for 30 frames per second, it's gonna run 30. So if you have VSync or I don't know. So you want it to be not dependent of the frame rate. So what you want to do is you just multiply it by time dot delta time, and this will fix it. No matter how much your frame rate is, it's gonna always run the same speed. And most likely you will probably have to make this bigger now because it will make it this value much smaller now. So let's make it negative 50, and we'll multiply it by this. Okay. So we make it negative, and 50 is way too much. Let's make it 10. That's okay. I guess we can make it a little bit low. So now we want to move it with D key to the right. So you can just copy this, paste it, and change this to D. And all you have to do is make this positive value. So now it's gonna move right when you press D. As well, we can do other things like W to move up. But on W, you don't want to move on x-axis, you want to move on z-axis. So that's x, y, z. So we just move this to z-axis. And I'm not sure if it's supposed to be positive or negative, so it might be opposite. So let's copy this again and make this S. And we're just gonna make this negative value, so it's gonna move up other way. Very simple. And as you can see, we have an error. So just double click on the error and see what I misspelled or mistyped. Oh, alright, this should be here. Alright, copying and pasting is not too good. Saves time, but okay, so W actually moves correct way, and so you can see we can control this with the key movement now. So, for example, what if you want the light to follow the player? You would normally you would have to actually set the position every frame. But in Unity has this really cool thing called you can parent stuff really easily. So once the light is parented, let's set light to 0, 0, 0. Just first of all, I'm gonna move it above the player, and all you have to do is drag the light inside the player, and now the light is parented to the player. That means whenever you move the player, the light moves with him. So let's reduce the range a little bit. Okay, so let's play it. So as you can see, the light is now parented to the player, just because you dragged it inside the player. Wherever the player moves, the light moves there, and now light's 0, 0, 0 position is not the 0, 0, 0 of the world, but of the player. So wherever the player is, that's the 0, 0, 0 of the light. The position. Oh, it's not really above it, but. Okay, so we have the player. We're gonna do now the sticks so we can pick them up. So first, let's create a stick. Create other. We're gonna create just another cube. We're gonna make it slightly longer. So that's our stick. Let's create a new material for him. Create material stick. Stick material. We're just gonna drag it onto the stick. So as you can see, he has the stick material now. We can change the color of it. Okay. So Unity has really good physics engine as well. So we can add actually physics to this stick by going to component, physics, and you just add rigid body. And now the stick is affected by the gravity. So let's rotate him a little bit so we can see. So once the game starts, stick is gonna fall down, and it's affected by the gravity. So let's rename. So now we can, for example, duplicate it, and so you can see. So I made 3 of them, and as you can see, they fall. Okay, so let's check the collision. Let's be able to pick up the stick. So we want to check if the player is colliding with the stick. So we're gonna create. Let's check the collision inside the player. That's gonna be easiest. So we're gonna go to player controller, and inside update function we want to check the collision. But there's one. I lost the material again. And now it's gonna be orange. Okay. So to be able to check collision, you can actually check. There's a function called onCollision, but the problem is once it collides with the floor, with the player, it doesn't really work well. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna use the trigger system that Unity has. You can tag anything as trigger and then use onTrigger function, and then you can check collision. You'll see what I mean in a second, but the problem is once I set the trigger here, it's not gonna be affected, it's not gonna do the gravity collision, so it's gonna fall through the floor if I set this as a trigger. So we actually need this collider to be able to, so it can fall down and hit the floor. So we need to actually create another collider. But the problem is objects can have 2 colliders. So to go around this, you can create another object called just empty object, for example, and just stick trigger, let's call it. And empty object is basically just a point in space. You don't see it. It's just there. So we just drag inside it to the stick, so it's parented, so it will follow the stick, this empty object. And we're gonna set his position to 0, 0, 0. And what we're gonna do, we're gonna actually add this trigger collider. So we're gonna set the trigger. And as you can see, that's the collision for the picking up of the stick, but it's not really the size of the stick, so we want to make it around the same as stick, I guess, like this. It can be slightly bigger, but this won't be affected by gravity, by the collision with the gravity because of the trigger. So if you play it now, it's gonna be exactly the same actually. Nice. We have to fix. Let's add the gravity to the player as well, so it can interact with the stick. There's a slight problem with that though. So you can see I can hit the stick, but he falls down. And to fix that, you just constrain his rotation, because he rotates whenever he hits something. He rotates slightly, and then once you press the key, it's gonna go on X, but it's rotated already. So we can just freeze all rotations here inside the rigid body, and don't freeze the position. So now if you walk, he's not gonna rotate whenever he hits something. So he's gonna go up, but not rotate. Okay. And we might actually, because as you can see, the mass of the player is 1, and mass of the stick is 1. So they basically weigh the same amount of. So that's why he kind of jumps off, because the stick is really heavy. So we reduced it. Okay. So we reduce the stick's mass to 0.1. Okay, so let's do the collision now. So we're gonna use the same script, and we're gonna use the predefined function called on trigger, enter. Keep in mind you have to have O capital, T capital, and E capital, or it's gonna read this. And what it gets is it gets the collider. Don't worry if you don't understand all this. It's collider, and we're just gonna call it call. So basically, whenever this object, player controller, which is attached to the player, so whenever the player collides with something that has a trigger, and as you remember, we set the stick trigger to trigger. Whenever it collides with that, it's gonna read the function, this function, and the call it gets here is the object we collided with, so the stick trigger. So we're just gonna do if call dot name. So first we want to make sure that we actually hit the stick trigger. What if there's another object on the scene that has a trigger? So we want to know, okay, you hit the stick. So if the collider's name is stick trigger. So remember we named it here's stick trigger. So if we hit the stick trigger, then we can pick it up. So to pick it up, you want to, well, we can destroy it actually, so it won't exist anymore. To do that, you just run a function called destroy dot and you pass in what you want to destroy. And we want to destroy, for example, call. And that's not going to call the game object actually, and that's not gonna work. Anyone know why? Why it will destroy something?
It's not going to destroy the stick, it's just going to destroy the little trigger inside it?
Yeah. So once we hit it, okay, it's still there, but once we pause the game and you check, the stick doesn't have this stick trigger anymore because we destroyed it. So we actually we destroyed the stick trigger, not the stick. So yeah, that's correct. So as you can see, once we start the game, when you pause it, it has the stick trigger. Once we collide with it, it doesn't. Okay, so we want to destroy the parent of the object. So dot transform dot parent dot game object. Alright, it's quite a lot of lines, but basically I want to destroy the game object of the parent, which is the stick. So now when we're gonna go inside the stick, it's gonna destroy it. There you go. Okay, now let's create sticks once you pick a new one. And we could create them actually inside the script, but I want to show you quickly how to be able to communicate with other scripts that are already created. So we're gonna create and we're gonna create a script called stick spawner. So it will spawn the sticks once you pick them up. And you want to attach this script to pretty much anything that will exist during the whole game. Well, we can just create an empty object like this point we created here, and we can just take advantage of it and just name it stick spawner and just start stick spawner script to it. So it's just this empty point in space which will always exist while the game runs. Okay, so before you be able to spawn the stick, you need to save it as a prefab. If you used Flash before, prefabs are basically like symbols. So we can just create a new folder inside our assets, prefabs, and we're gonna drag this stick inside this folder. And you will know if it's a prefab if it's blue. So basically what it means, now you can delete it, But once you go to your prefab folder and you see the stick here, it has the stick collider and everything. You can just simply drag inside as many as you want. But so yeah. So we're not gonna start with any sticks when the game begins, but the stick spawner will spawn a stick once the game begins, and will manage the spawning of them. So we're gonna go to our new script. You can see a list of them here. So there's the stick spawner, and as you remember, that's our default script with this name of the class, start function, and update function. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna create our own function. So we were not actually gonna use update function at all in here. We're just gonna create a spawn stick, and this script will just spawn a stick, obviously. And what we're gonna do is, you want to know what is the stick first. So we're gonna create public game object stick object. So this will be the stick, the prefab stick. And to do that, once you make something public, a variable, once you make a variable, a class public here, class object, if you click now on this stick spawner, as you can see, there's the stick object, and it says there's no objects. So you basically can just set them here. So you can just drag it here, and now this game object in the script is actually the prefab, because we set it here. And it's pretty good because you can create, for example, different types of sticks and just drag them here or something. Okay, so now the stick object is the prefab. So we want to create it. What we're gonna do is use instantiate function. It's just creates it will create this stick. And we can actually just create it at all, or we can pass in the position and rotation of the stick once it's spawned. So we want to get its position. So new vector, and so here you pass the position of the stick once it's spawned. So once you spawn the stick, you want to spawn it out, for example, 0, 0, 0. And then rotation. For rotation, just do quaternion.identity, and don't worry about that for now. So this is the position of the stick, where it will spawn. And obviously you want to spawn randomly within this area that camera sees. So let's make sure like in what area you want to spawn it, more or less. So let's look more or less through camera's eyes. Oops. Okay. Okay, so this is the 0x. So let's check on what x position we want to spawn the sticks. So just look at here and at this x position, and once we move it, it changes the x position. So we can actually kind of tell, okay, so once we spawn at -7, it still will be within camera range, but once we go a little bit further, the stick might be out of camera sight, so it's probably better not to spawn there. So let's just say -7, and that's probably gonna be 7. So on x we want to spawn more or less from -7 to 7. And here let's say -4 to 5. Let me write that down so we don't forget. So you can just comment like in C++, so -7 to 7 on x, and then -4 to, let's say, 5 on Z. Okay, so to make it random, to generate random value between -7 and 7, for example, so as I said on x, so first value is the x. So we're gonna do random dot range, and then you pass the range. We're gonna do -7, 7. And there is actually a problem with this, and anyone knows what's the problem? It will work. It will generate values between -7 and 7, but there's a. It will work, but it has slight problem. Anyone knows what's the problem? That one is quite tricky actually. So once let's not play it. Okay, let me explain why it's not properly. Because -7 to 7, as you can see, it has two. You could pass in ends or floats. If you pass ends, it's gonna generate integers. So it's gonna generate values like -7, -6, 5, 4. If you convert these to floats, if you do that 0.0f, it's gonna be much more variety of randomness, since it's gonna generate the floats. So it's gonna do, for example, 4.5678. So you want to pass in floats if you want that kind of variety of randomness. So same so on y, we probably don't want to spawn it on 0 because 0 might be inside the floor. So let's spawn it on 1, so it's slightly higher than the floor. And since we have rigid body, it will fall down because of the gravity. And on z, we want to just paste that random range and -4 to 5. Okay. The slight problem, which is it's not gonna spawn the sticks yet, because we never run this function. So let's just run it at the start. So when the stick spawner is created, which is created when the game begins, it will spawn the stick. So let's run it. As you can see, the stick is here. Let's rerun the game. So it's in slightly different position every time you start the game. Okay, so, but obviously now once you pick up the stick, it's not gonna spawn another one. So we have to run this spawn stick function once you pick it up. But, you have to access this script. So you want to run spawn stick function, this function, when you collide with the stick. So when you destroy the stick inside here. So you can actually use this thing called send message, but I want to show you how to find objects and manipulate them as well, so I'm just going to do that way. So game object.find, and we're going to find the object that the script is attached to, and it wants the name of the object. So the name of this object is spawn sticker, stick spawner. So stick spawner, and now you can, for example, even move its position or anything, but we want to get the script, and the script is the component. So that get component, and then you're gonna do the less than simple, the name of the script. So I can't remember the name of the script. Let's check. Oh, it's stick spawner. So stick spawner. Let me move this. So you find the object, we get the component, the script. So now we can manipulate the script, and so we have this now, this script. So now we want to access this function, and the problem is once you press dot, you should be able to see this function, but you don't. Spawn, and that's because this script is private. The function is private. The class is public, so we can access it, but this is private. So we can access the stick object, as you can. Let me show you. This mouse is really broken. So stick. So we can access this object, but we can't access this function, and that's because it's private. So you want to make it public, so it has the access to this function. Okay. So now you can spawn it. Okay, so every time you pick it up, you just create new stick. So let's quickly do some score, so we can actually see how many sticks we picked up. So let's do it inside the player control script. We're just gonna create integer score, and every time you pick up the score, you just add it by 1. And now we just want to show it. So you want to use on GUI, which is another predefined function. Keep in mind it's case sensitive, so I've seen a lot of people, and even in third year, they spell GUI like this, and they ask me why it's not working. So make sure it's like this. Okay, so with on GUI, you want actually a thing called game skin. Don't worry about this, but actually it's called GUI skin, and just called skin. It's just this thing Unity has to change font and colors. So we're just gonna do GUI.skin skin. So don't worry about those lines of code. And this is statement, Unity says that you have to do it that way, and it just has to work like this. Okay. And we just have to create this skin. Okay, so let me show you what the skin is. GUI skin. So we're just gonna create, and then you create a GUI skin. Let's call it game skin. And here you can change the font, the size of the. You can do buttons, all this. But you have to have one in order to do the GUI. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna use labels. And we're just gonna make it red, the text. So you can see it actually changed things. You can change the font size, alignment, all this. Bold, now you can make bold and all this. So if you go to the player, we made the GUI skin public, so you just drag it here and you don't have to worry about it anymore. So you want to create this, you create a label. GUI.label. It wants the position and the rect. So just do new rect, and it wants X, Y, left, top, width, and height. So we're just gonna do this. So 0, 0 is 0, 0 is in the corner of the screen. So we're gonna make it slightly away from the corner so you can see it more, and that's the how big is the box. And now it wants the content, so we're just gonna do score. So what will the GUI show? So we want to score, and then you add to the score the actual score, the integer. And you want it to convert to string, so you just do dot string. So now it's just to show you guys, you can actually do the text and all this on screen very easily. So you can see there's the score, and it just increases every time you pick it up. Let's finally do the music and sound really quickly. So I already have actually I already have the sound and the music. So I'm just gonna, so it's in music sound folder. So I'm just gonna create a folder for sound. And we're gonna import new asset. using sound. Okay, so we're gonna import the dark ambient music, which I got from freesound.org. By the way, you can get royalty-free music and sounds for your games and all this from freesound.org. Import another asset, and we're gonna. That's the sound when you pick up the object. So we're gonna have the background music, and we're gonna have the sound once you pick up the stick. First, let's do the pick up the stick sound, that will require actually a little bit of coding. So in the player, we want to play the sound once we pick up this stick. So we want to create a thing called public audio clip, and then just like pick up. So that's the name of the clip. So just name it pickup clip. Now to play it, all you do is just inside here, audio dot play one shot, and then you pass in the clip. It's just pick clip, and then now we'll play this sound, but it doesn't know what this sound is. So as remember, I made it public. So now once it finishes loading this music, we're just gonna drag the pickup clip here. Let me. Oh, it's stuck again. Yeah, that only happens at university computers, so hopefully they will fix it soon. And I hope we didn't lose the project. Can't remember if I saved it. So you get the idea. It will play the sound once you set it in the public thing. Do we lose anything? So let's click on the player, and it wants the sound because we made it public. So you just drag the sound so it knows which sound to play. So and it gives you a null error, so something isn't saved. Thinks it's null for some reason. Oh, yeah, I know why. And it's giving an error because you actually have to add the audio source component here. Just audio source and then choose this clip. And take on player on wake so it doesn't play the sound when the game starts. So as you can see, it plays sound now. And lastly, let's do the music. This doesn't require any coding at all. You can just create empty object called music. we add the audio source, play on wake and loop. So it loops the music and plays on awake. And we're just gonna drag this music inside here. Keep in mind it's a 3D sound, so it's gonna play from this spot. You can actually click here and undo the 3D, so it's gonna be 2D sound. It's gonna play from all the speakers, but keep in mind, I'm not gonna do that now because it's gonna start loading and converting and all this, so I don't want to freeze the game. So as you see, there's I think that's actually amnesia music, isn't it? Sounds like it.
What's it doing?
Well, it's this from importing assets every time you alt tab. So yeah. If you want, I can show you quickly some of the games I made with this. So that's pretty much the end for the tutorial. Sorry, it's crashing all the time, but
So can we see the end game? Like, that was just it, going and picking up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
yeah, I will show you if
If
this
it,
would
if
work.
it wants to work. Yeah.
Okay. So let me try again to show you how it works, if it works.
So that's the new update, right? So we shouldn't have asked for the new update. Everybody was crying for the new update. So we updated it.
Yeah, but once the new update came out and they
Then
updated
there was
it,
a bug.
no,
Yeah.
there was another update to fix that bug, but university didn't update it again.
Oh, okay.
And we lost the sound now because it didn't save.
All right.
Okay,
So
so
show us some of your other games. Yeah.
actually I can download one.
Yeah.
Should I? I don't know if it's gonna run this computer, but
So it's Daryl, I think, that has to ask them to update it again because there's a bug. They only listen to him.
yeah, that's the game actually which we created for Hope's module last year
Mm-hmm.
in May.
It was only last year. Yeah.
Hopefully the internet is fast enough to download this quickly. So yeah, we created this game since February till May.
Mm-hmm.
And team of 8. I was the lead programmer. We had quite a few people, but quite a few people didn't do any work, so kind of cancels out. So yeah. Any questions about Unity or anything else?
Do you all know how to make a game now? And how Unity can be frustrating no matter how good you are, but it is the thing that people use.
Well, my office works perfectly, so.
Mm.
And just in 1.7 as well, you have this problem, so. But at home, you won't have this problem with the loading assets, so don't worry about that. But you will be using the free version, which is, yeah?
I was just about to ask, you said about the pro version, how much does that cost?
So, pro version is, I think it's £1,500.
But we have it in the lab. It's just, we obviously have to do one more update because we did an update and it has a bug, right?
Yeah.
We love updates. It was working fine.
Yeah, but free version you can still make. Oh, I forgot to mention, you can compile that game to pretty much any platform you want: Android, iPhone, tablets, PC, Linux. Yeah, it works with Oculus Rift. Linux, Mac. 360, yeah?
What are the advantages of using it over other softwares that are doing the same thing for games?
Software like what, for example?
3D Max.
3D Max. 3D Max is to create models and Unity is to create games. So, for example, actually 3D Max works with Unity. So you can create 3D Max model and then you just add it to Unity and then you can use this model like as a main character, or for example I create my models for my games in Maya and you can just literally create a model in Maya, you just add .ma file to Unity and it works.
The models in 3D Max even vary. I don't like ones from Blender.
To be honest, I think you have to save it as FDX file in order to get it working. With Maya it works straight away, but I never tried going from 3D Max or from Blender. I know it works for sure.
Yeah.
But I think you just save it as FBX file and it works perfectly. I know people use Blender with Unity and 3D Max, so there's a way definitely.
Okay.
You might be just you might actually just drag the project file and it will work like with Maya. It automatically converts for you. Yeah, it has all the normal mapping, so you have the how lights affect the thing and all that with in Unity as well. So. And there's loads of tutorials online, and the Unity website has quite a few as well.
Yeah, the good thing about Unity is that lots and lots of people use it. So anything you want to know, there's online tutorials and forums and.
The biggest problem with it is too easy. So once in companies, like if you want to be a professional developer, they will ask you questions like about OpenGL and DirectX and all this. So if you use just Unity, you're gonna have to learn OpenGL, for example, just to show you know the background, how Unity works, what it uses. But overall, it's a really good start, but it's good to, if you want to make games for a living, you need to know OpenGL or SDL, or probably you don't need to know SDL, but it's good to know what it is and how it works. Maybe I should just show you a video. It's gonna be faster. I kind of went with. Alright, so let me show you a video. It's probably easier. So, I'm not sure how much gameplay you see in here. So you see that there are the models and all this. It's a horror game. And it's randomly generated as well. So the objects, items inside objects. Probably shouldn't do top secret this though. So you sneak past the monsters and you look through for the items and all this.
You have to collect all the items and make a puzzle.
Yeah, this
And then when you have
puzzle.
all the pieces of the puzzle, you get into a
How
new.
can we play your game?
Hmm?
Can we download it?
Yeah, I can download it. It's not really that good, but in my opinion at least. I'm still working on it though, and I'm rewriting the story and all this, but yeah, you can go to versions/game -.co.uk/download. But keep in mind that was just created in like 3 months ago.
And you can show your sled drift. You got the guy playing your sled drift.
Oh no,
No?
it's glitches. Yeah, I created an Oculus game as well. But it changed a lot since then. But you move your head to avoid objects and all this. But now it looks much better. Because I redid all the models and textures. and all this was created in Unity. There was some PHP in the background for leaderboards and the databases, but overall Unity used most of it. Anyone knows who Jacksepticeye is? No? Okay. So yeah, any questions? Anyone want to make games? Yay!
Well, Conrad can always be found in Incubator on Wednesday afternoons. When we have Oculus Rift, so if you want to try the game, play any of his games, come around. And that's it. Is that it? That's it.
If you want, okay, never mind. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
That's it. So.
Yeah. And you've got your Gizmo link, and all it requires is that you just go through the basic tutorials, and the questions are fairly easy. So, I'm sure you won't have any trouble.
Yeah.